Welcome to Starting Blocks, where we'll be taking a look at some of the world's best-loved sports stars in their earliest years, long before they became legends in their own shorts. Plus, action replays of things they may well regret, and some haircuts and trousers they most definitely will regret. And what age do they have to be before you recognise them? For instance, who did this little boy waddling round the garden grow up to be? No prizes for guessing who this is, but has he always been quite so cocky? Which sport did having a pigeon stuffed down the top of his trousers prepare this young hopeful for? And who's this Bay City roller lookalike, and why did he miss the biggest event of the year?
What about the royal wedding then? Did you see it? What? Don't go to the tower. Why didn't you see it?
I'm playing football over the park.
Well, I see. I'll make you go through your paces a bit later on.
Frightening woman. The interviewer is Sarah Kennedy, dressed up there as if she's just popped in to sell some lucky heather, and her knowledge of sport is impressive by its total absence.
Why are you special in the sports world?
Oh, I run the Bobby Charlton Soccer School. Finals, skills finals.
Brilliant. So where are you off to?
Barcelona for 2 weeks.
Gosh, is that Maradona? No, it's the wrong one, isn't it? Isn't that Argentina? Who's the star in Barcelona?
Mark Hughes and Gary Lineker.
Well, of course, I knew that, really. I was just pretending. Come and show me how you did it. Right, show us what you did. Try and get it to the bit over the back. Hey! Well done.
Yeah, not exactly Des Lynam, was she? Well, apart from the moustache. So do we know who it is yet? Possibly a footballing person? No, not a little Jimmy Greaves. Probably not Eric Cantona. Here's a little bit more information. So here he is at the age of 3 in a red shirt. Bit of a clue there. This is our mystery little chap out in the garden running rings round his sister. Now, this is him with a blue shirt, but the word sharp written on it. This is him running rings around everybody else in his local park. And here he is playing for Manchester United. He's also the star of England, Brill Cream and Posh Spice. Not necessarily in that order. He is, of course, David Beckham.
I'm really looking forward to working with Brill Cream, taking them to the top of the Premiership and beyond. Thank you, see you soon.
Since his first TV appearance with upmarket Sarah Kennedy, David Beckham shown a real taste for a bit of posh. Stop it! Now, at this point, I know what you're thinking. Aren't foreigners funny? Well, here are some who certainly are, like this little chap who's training to be a seal. This one looks a bundle of fun, doesn't he? This little boy hasn't quite grown into his racket. This one's outgrown everything. And this little girl's ambition is to grow out of looking like Mel Smith. And she does. So how many of those did you spot? Now, I bet the huge Kiwi rugby player's got you completely baffled, hasn't he? Let's have a look at them again. The fed-up-looking kid with the glazed expression you normally only see on Liam Gallagher is seen here demonstrating his best black and white double-handed backhand. It was, of course, Sweden's brilliant but impassive Bjorn Borg. And he still looks fed up. Bjorn Borg, of course, went on to win Wimbledon time and time again, getting more and more cheesed off. Since then, he's been divorced twice and gone bankrupt, which has cheered him up quite nicely. That was Borg, the ever-smiling Swede. But who is this little Dutch boy? Now, this rising soccer star was always at home on any surface. This pitch is clearly badly waterlogged. This one looks distinctly bumpy. He was always in total control on the pavement and on the pitch. He became the captain of the great Dutch team of the 70s, Johan Cruyff. Now, incidentally, of all his many achievements, Cruyff's greatest was undoubtedly becoming European Footballer of the Year while still smoking 60 fags a day. Now, what about this little kid? He was a little kid. He was actually a very, very big kid.
He's certainly a good size for a schoolboy, isn't he?
6'5", weigh 118 kgs.
What's that in stone, do you know?
It's 17.5 stone.
Even if he got his sums wrong, no maths master in his right mind was going to argue with the young Jonah Lomu, one of the greatest and biggest rugby players of all time. Now for someone who would have no fun at all with Jonah Lomu on the other end of his seesaw. Who is he? He's a born-again Christian. No, not Cliff Richard. He married a former child star whose name was Shields. Yes, the little chap did eventually grow into his racket as Andre Agassi. But sadly, his head eventually grew out of his hair. Some people have the occasional bad hair day. Andre's had a bad hair life. And the snag with having thick hair everywhere but where you want it is that you don't know where to stop shaving. The cute Mel Smith lookalike on the left is Chris Evert, while the one on the right is a headless tablecloth. Oi, Mel, smile into the camera. No, smile into it, not walk into it. As you can see, she was just a typical shy, retiring little American girl, which is lucky because she's not very good with cameras. Or underwear. Promising first curtsy, and of course that's always handy in later life when you're receiving trophies from the Queen. Chris became one of the greatest world champions of all time, and today she's busy breeding little Mel Smiths all of her own. All together now, dribble for the camera. So there you are, that's growing up elsewhere around the globe for you. Very strange business. But who is this little girl growing up the typically English way? Usual industrial strength hairdryer in the kitchen. Usual scrambled eggs for a big breakfast. Usual 24 bottles of plonk over the blackboard. It's a bit laid back at her school, isn't it? Seem to be able to turn up whenever you like, bring in your shopping. She became one of our best-loved Olympic stars. But who did this young Amazon grow up to be? Mary Peters? Tessa Sanderson? Princess Anne? It is, of course, future Olympic swimmer Sharon Davis, dreaming of the day when she can pull on a pair of hot pants and take the dog for a walk. Sharon, who's incidentally here the one on the left, went on to reap the benefits of all those early morning training sessions under the hairdryer with commercials like this.
If you have to wash your hair as often as Sharon Davis, you need a gentle shampoo, like New Once from Super Soft. Now Sharon recommends it to all her friends.
Sharon Davis there sharing an ad for hair shampoo with an Olympic standard slaphead. Duncan obviously couldn't hope to emulate Sharon's fluffy bouffant locks, but for a few cringe-making years, Kevin Keegan did.
Hey, what's the thing you're playing at? Come here. That's no way to cross the road, is it? Come over here, I'll show you a safe place to cross. Now here, there's no parked cars to block your view. Nothing coming? Sure? Off you go. Straight across, mind. And keep your eyes open. It's part of the Green Cross Code. Take it from me. Be smart. Be safe.
Be smart? That jacket's more like Billy Smart. And how can you be safe when your legs have made it across the road, but your trousers haven't got anywhere near? In the 70s, Kevin Keegan may have been English football's Mr. Squeaky Clean, but in the 90s, English tennis now has its own Mr. Clean and Squeaky. As a young public schoolboy, he obviously didn't realise that to be a top English tennis star, or even British Sports Personality of the Year, you have to have a Polish name and a Canadian accent. One doesn't want to be called anything as English as Hen Man, and one certainly doesn't want to talk about the lightness of one's balls in public.
The balls are much lighter and it would be better for your stroke, so you don't have to hit the ball so hard.
Tim Henman there hasn't changed much, really, has he? Someone else who hasn't changed much is Steve Davis, seen here with Janet Street Porter, who's all dressed up for what look like line dancing lessons.
Today we've got Steve Davis here, who at 19 is London and Home County's junior snooker king. Hi. Now, traditionally, it's said that snooker is the far more difficult game and that a really good snooker player will always beat a good pool player at pool. What do you two think about that?
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's spooky. It's Steve Davis. Oh! I have to say, he was watching that and he's going, oh, imagine how Janet feels. Oh, God.
Collars were massive, weren't they?
They were.
They were enormous collars, and tight-fitting jumpers were all the rage, with, especially with brown jumpers. I was always putting brown jumpers by my mother because I had ginger hair.
Well, ginger and brown is a really, you know, lovely, a dull combination.
I've rebelled ever since. I hate brown.
Yeah.
That was early TV for me. I grew into becoming much more boring personality as I blossomed into boringness. I was just taking it for granted that I was going to go places at that time, and then I moved on. You know, I start off with I was a trainee boring person.
but I mean, in fairness, now you've got it down to fine art, haven't you?
I think I've captured the whole marketplace.
Well, let's have a look, because just one or two early signs of the sort of, you know, how dull you were going to become. There's you as... Look at this one. This is you dressed up as a domino. I mean, you couldn't even be interesting like a double six. You have to be a 5 and a 1. That's like the dullest thing you could get in dominoes.
No, that was a 1-5.
Oh, 1-5, I'm sorry.
No, you're always from the top downwards.
Yeah, you
I should have been a double blank, shouldn't I?
You should have been.
I was the only domino at that party. I had no one to go with. There wasn't a 1-4 or a 5-3 around. I was forced into being a personality and being a...
You became the wild and crazy guy you are today, Stephen.
In spite of myself.
I mean, obviously these days with the Matchroom team and Barry Earn and Co, you travel around the world, but in those days you actually looked forward to visiting Romford.
So how do you go about finding better players to play against? Do you travel around looking for people to play?
I play at a working men's club, Pumsley Common Working Men's Club, and I travel over to Romford, where there are better facilities and better players to play against.
Steve, even then, you just had to show off to girls with your tricks with your little cue, didn't you? Was Posh Janet impressed by your skills?
Terrific. Let's have another look at that in slow motion. Let's see another one of those tricks. What about a swerve shot?
Yeah. That was a swerve
shot.
Got a severe swerve.
I mean, in many ways, actually, you haven't changed a lot, but one or two of your colleagues really have. Ronnie O'Sullivan's still only in his 20s, but he's already changed enormously. Now, in this interview with a long-haired, almost slim Danny Baker, which shows you how long ago it was, the young O'Sullivan is already confident, but somewhat confused.
My uncle got a table for his son, and I went over his ass. And I started playing that, and I thought it was good. I couldn't knit a ball to save my life, but... And then my dad got me a table at Christmas, and I weren't allowed to play on it until Christmas. And we had it in for 2 weeks, and he kept saying, no, you're not playing on it. I used to cry, and he used to play all his mates.
How do you feel when you watch snooker on the television, you see the Steve Davises and everybody else? Is that where you're headed?
Yeah.
How big do you want to be?
5'10".
That's right. Wherever he is, he'll be going, I don't believe they've run that again. Embarrassing or what? I mean, people do very strange things when they're being interviewed. Now, have a little look at this. This is you, and it's very odd. It's just something I noticed. I just thought, what a strange little habit, Stephen.
It was left-handed there, wasn't it?
Well, that's very impressive. I'm over here, by the way.
It's comforting, sort of like a rag. You know, like a child has a rag. You know, a snooker cue is something to talk about, you know? Sort of like... The reason why that is done is because when you are a bit nervous, your hands sweat and they're sticky, and on the cue, you need to keep the cue nice and smooth.
Of course.
Simple explanation. It's either that or talcum powder.
Yes. much does the lifestyle, because here's all this hanging around snooker halls till 1 o'clock in the morning, I mean, how much does it... You actually are in surprisingly good nick, because you've paced your body out over the years, but I mean, Jimmy White looks a bit strange, and Dennis Taylor sort of goes around like that. I mean, is it a rough old life on people?
Yeah, the snooker world's not... You can abuse your body, obviously, but not... It's
very kind of you, Stephen. I was going straight home, but it's very kind.
Spending time in hotels, time after time.
Now, Stephen, have a look at this. Little boy we showed at the top of the show. Who is it? Any ideas?
None.
None at all.
Tennis player? Perhaps a tennis player? White clothes? Don't know.
That's very close. As in, nowhere near. Give him a big hand. Steve Davis. Just saying, don't forget to find out. You can find out, Steve can, and you can at home, and you can in the audience in the second half. The identity of the little boy in the slippers. Well, it was supposed to be slippers, but thanks to a typing error, I'm afraid we've got flippers. Now, have you worked out who he is yet? All right, see a bit more of him. Very nearly too much of him. We'll tell you who he is after the break. Welcome back to Starting Blocks. Now, during the break, I left you trying to work out who on earth this little boy grew up to be. Let's see a little bit more of him. This is him at the age of 6. And if any of you have been tearing your hair out in frustration, you may end up looking just like him. As in adult life, the little boy here on the right grew up to become 1980 Olympic gold medalist Duncan Goodhue. Rare footage there from 1963 of Duncan Goodhue with hair. The same year as the last reported sighting of Paul Gascoigne with an orange juice. Duncan Goodhue has really made the best of what he hasn't got. But while Duncan's always happy to laugh at his misfortune, Jeremy Beadle's always happy to laugh at everyone else's. Now, to avoid any confusion, in this clip from Game for a Laugh, the ones on the left and the right are pumpkins. Jeremy is the one in between.
They're going to put their hand in and feel this.
She's right, it was an Ed, and here's another Ed with a couple of chubby little cheeks. Why do you do that? Embarrassing. And a couple of chubby little chins, but whose are they? You got any ideas? Sweet little baby, but he grew up not liking sugar.
Do you think you'll ever play for England?
Don't know, I can't tell really.
Are you hoping to?
Oh, I'd like to, yeah.
What would you be doing if you weren't going to be playing football all your life?
Oh, I have no idea. That's all I can do.
Okay, any idea who was that? Come on, you had a look. Any idea? Terry Venables. Of course it was. One idea might have been to become a professional singer. Well, he convinced Russell Harty anyway.
Now it's time for Mr. Terry Venables to sing. The song is called What Do You Want to Make Those Eyes at Me For? Terry Venables.
Oh, why do you want to make those eyes if they don't mean what they say? They make me glad, they make me sad, they make me want a lot of things that I've never had.
Well, all right, perhaps a singing career wasn't such a good idea. What is it about the England manager's job that makes them all want to burst into song? We're all clapping and none of us really know why. It's just something we do in television studios. That was Hoddle with Waddle and a load of old twaddle. While we're on the subject of double acts, Little and Large. Now, what was the one thing they didn't need? A third straight man. Yes, it's that man Keegan again with What Would You Do If I Sang Out of Tune?
Hey, Siddy, he can't play for you. He's not a singer.
Well, that's where you're wrong, because he's just had a top 10 hit, you see, with This Time.
If he carries on like this, he won't be having one next time.
What would you do if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me?
I might do. He's a bit good, isn't he?
Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song, and I'll try not to sing out of key.
Nearly as good as you.
Oh, I get by with a little help from my friends. Oh, I get high with a little help from my friends. Oh, I'm gonna try with a little help from my friends.
A lot of you won't remember Kevin Keegan before he learned how to use a comb. And a lot of you won't remember what Gary Lineker did before he was a panel game captain, crisp advertiser and straight man to the Spice Girls. But he did actually used to have a proper job.
His family run a thriving fruit and vegetable business in Leicester Market. At one time, Gary used to work on the stall, often getting up at 4 in the morning. Now, thankfully, he gets a lie-in before going to the training ground.
This is football's Mr. Nice, Gary Lineker, way back before he grew ears. Here's Gary in 1982 at his dad's greengrocer's carrying 10 vegetables. Practice that came in very handy when he played for Graham Taylor's England side. That's all very well, but what a terrible waste of a perfectly good, promising young greengrocer. This next personality had a bit of a strange start as well. He was the youngest person ever to appear on Grandstand's regular weekly pigeon racing slot. And his name was Gerald.
I believe you were judging, Gerald, yesterday, weren't you?
I was helping the judge.
How old are you?
12.
Well, how did you become an assistant judge at that very young age?
Well, some of Mr. Richards' friends who I judged told him about me in Cornwall when I was on their holiday.
Well, congratulations on being a judge at your very tender years. But before we leave you, whose is that bird?
It comes from Czechoslovakia, and I don't know the name of the person whose business it is, but...
Wouldn't be Marshal Tito's, would it, by any chance?
Yes, I think it is.
I think it is. Thank you very much, Gerald.
That was back in the jolly good old black and white days at the Beeb, when the fact that Marshal Tito was actually president of Yugoslavia didn't stop the follically challenged presenter doing one-liners about Czechoslovakia. So who was Gerald? Any ideas?
Jerry Francis.
That's close, he became Jerry Francis. This is sharp-looking Jerry today, but when he and his fine sideboards captained England, he looked more like a werewolf. Some of our budding footballers have yet to master the art of facial hair. Here's Alan Shearer moaning on about his goal that was disallowed, when obviously it was his moustache that should have been disallowed. In fact, he should have been sent off.
There's no way I pushed him. I got in front of him, and if anything, he pushed me. Just got my head there before it should have been a goal. No way it should have been disallowed.
The young man with the savage tackle and the savage haircut is Ryan Giggs, when he was rather puzzlingly called Ryan Wilson, captain of the England under-15s.
England captain there, Ryan Wilson, who's with Manchester United. All these guys, remember, have to be under 15 on September the 1st.
Hang on, that bloke's never under 15. Well, his glasses might be, but his head certainly isn't. So, Ryan Wilson of England grew up to be Ryan Giggs of Wales, and turned out to be really rather good. Great goal. Now, from what we've seen tonight, it's obvious that many future stars reveal their talent as teenagers, but some kids show genius when they're barely out of nappies. And there's no mistaking this little chap, a perfect miniature Stephen Hendry. And even though at this age he can't actually see over the table, it doesn't seem to cramp his style at all. This early footage of a small but already perfectly formed Stephen Hendry is just like watching him down the wrong end of a telescope. Now, here's another young sporting genius, but who is it? Obviously not an American footballer. Golf was much more his game. Tiger Woods looked like being a golfing great from the first day that he picked up a club. As a little kid, he said, "I just want to beat all the best players in the world." And in 1997, he did just that. He went on to become the youngest ever US Masters champion. Horse racing has had its young heroes too. This little piglet went to Newmarket and became Leicester Piglet. The years haven't been kind to Leicester, have they? Nor have the Inland Revenue. When the disgraced Piggott was sent to jail, he also had his OBE taken away. But actually nobody knew he had one, as he'd never declared it. Leicester was quite difficult to spot there from his looks, but here's someone you could spot with your eyes closed. Who else but the grunting Monica Seles demonstrated that if she hadn't played tennis, she could actually have worked in a burger bar, because that is the only other place in the world you can get away with making unintelligible grunts while you're serving. This next young talent has always been rather noisy as well. He doesn't grunt much, but most of his opponents do as they're falling down. He's probably the most exciting prospect to hit British boxing for years. He obviously had total confidence and complete arrogance from the moment he first stepped into the ring. Who else but the young boy boxer, latterly known as Prince, would at the tender age of 13 come into the ring in a gold dressing gown? The young thrusting Prince clearly had the Nazim shuffle almost as soon as he could walk. Even as a kid, you wouldn't want to upset him, would you? In his early days, most of his opponents didn't last very long at all. So, no real change there then. From the very beginning of his career, Nazim has always looked very slick, totally in control, and has never put a foot wrong. Hardly ever. I think we should enjoy that again one more time, don't you, children? Do you know, we just saved every satellite subscriber in the country a good 15 quid for showing that bit twice. Well, that was injury time, so sadly it's time to blow the final whistle, hang up any other old sporting cliches lying around our dressing room, and thank all the good sports who let us see how silly they used to look. And didn't some of them look particularly silly? Not a bit like the more serious, dignified broadcasters amongst us. Night-night.